English Learning Podcast.
From Easy English with Class.
Okay, picture this. You're standing in line at a coffee shop, or, maybe you're in a meeting room 5 minutes before it all kicks off.
That dead air time.
Exactly. And you know the words. You've studied the grammar. You understand everything that's happening. You've probably even rehearsed this exact moment in your head a dozen times.
In the shower that morning, yep.
But then the moment comes. The moment to actually open your mouth and speak, and just nothing. You freeze.
Oh, it's the classic brain freeze, The operating system just crashes.
It totally crashes. Your brain is just screaming, "I can't do it, abort!" Your heart starts pounding and your mouth, it just stays shut. And you end up just kind of nodding and smiling.
While dying a little bit inside. It's a visceral reaction. It's not just being nervous. It's a full body shutdown.
It really is. And look, we've all been there. But today we're not just, talking about how awkward that feels. We're going to try and fix it. We are doing a deep dive into this really fascinating guide called I Can Do It, Learn English.
And I have to say, when I first saw that title, I thought, okay, here we go. Another motivational pamphlet.
A bit like a poster in a school counselor's office.
Yeah, exactly. But digging into it, it's really a masterclass in behavioral psychology. It's just disguised as a language guide.
That's precisely what I found. It's less about subject-verb agreement and more about, rewriting that script in your head from I can't to I can. Because the barrier most of the time isn't that we don't know the word.
Right. It goes for the root cause. It argues that the problem isn't usually a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of psychological safety. You're not quiet because you don't know the word for coffee. Yeah. You're quiet because your brain has flagged the situation as a threat.
So our mission today is to pull out the toolkit from this source. We're going to look at some specific psychological hacks, and I mean that, and some very practical, actionable steps to just get you speaking. Imperfectly, maybe a little messy, but speaking.
And it all starts with this fundamental shift, a bold statement right at the beginning of the guide. It says, English is courage.
English is courage. I mean, it's catchy, but is it just a slogan? What does that actually mean for someone who's, staring at a list of irregular verbs?
Well, think about how we're taught. Language is treated like an academic subject. It's data, rules, lists, syntax. You memorize it, you pass the test.
Get 100%, you know the language.
Right. But this source argues that language is a performance skill. It's physical. If you don't speak, you don't build the skill. And what stops you from speaking isn't a missing verb, it's fear. So English, or really any new skill, becomes an exercise in bravery.
It's the bravery to be imperfect in public, which, let's be honest, is most people's biggest nightmare.
It really is. We are wired to avoid social embarrassment. To our ancestral brain, being embarrassed meant getting kicked out of the tribe, so the stakes feel like life or death even when you're just ordering a latte.
So if courage is the fuel, then I guess fear is the brake.
That's a great way to put it.
And this guide, it actually points to 3 very specific brakes. The things that freeze us up. And I want to unpack these because I feel like just recognizing them is half the battle.
Absolutely. If you can name the monster,
it gets smaller. So what's the first one?
The first one is the big one, the mistake myth. This paralyzing fear that I will make a mistake and that a mistake is the same thing as failure.
I feel like that's just drilled into us from school. The red pen all over your paper. A mistake means you didn't study hard enough. It means you're wrong.
Exactly. We equate accuracy with intelligence. But the source just flips this entirely. It says, mistakes are not failure. Mistakes are data. They're practice. And here's the reality check it gives us. Even native speakers make mistakes. Constantly.
Do we? I mean, I feel like I usually know what I'm saying.
You think you do. But if you were to listen to a raw transcript of a casual conversation, even between 2 experts, it's a mess. People stutter, they restart sentences, they use the wrong word, they say,
That's so true. When I listen back to raw audio of myself, I'm always changing my mind halfway through a sentence. But when you're learning a new language, you hold yourself to this impossible standard.
The standard of a perfectly edited audiobook. And because nobody actually talks like that, you're setting yourself up to fail before you even start.
You're comparing your rough draft to someone else's final copy. Okay, so that's the internal pressure, the I must be perfect thing. What about the external pressure? That brings us to fear number 2.
Which is judgment. The fear that people will judge me, that the person you're talking to is thinking, wow, their English is terrible. They sound so uneducated.
The spotlight effect. You feel like everyone's analyzing every single syllable.
But the source offers this really liberating counter-argument. It basically reminds us that most people are narcissists.
Ha. In the best possible way, right?
In a totally harmless way.
Okay.
But yes, most people are not thinking about your grammar. They're thinking, I hope I don't look stupid, or what am I having for lunch? They are not grading your syntax.
So we're worried about an audience that isn't even watching the show. That's actually really comforting.
Exactly.
Okay, so fear of mistakes, fear of judgment. What's the third one?
This one is more of a tactical fear. The vanishing word.
Ugh, I hate this one. It happens to me in my own language.
It's that moment, you're in the middle of a sentence, you're on a roll, and then it just blank. The word for umbrella or schedule just deletes itself from your brain.
And that's when the panic really kicks in. The silence feels like it's stretching on for hours and you just stop.
Right. And we will get to the fix for that because the source has some brilliant repair phrases. But before we do, there's a key insight here. The source calls it the quick truth.
Okay, what is it?
Confidence often comes after the action, not before it.
Wait, say that again? Because I think most of us believe the opposite. We think, I'll speak up in the meeting once I feel confident.
And that's the trap. We sit around waiting to feel ready. But the psychology is that confidence is the reward. It's a byproduct of doing the scary thing. You have to act while you're still scared.
You don't wait for the fear to go away. You do it with the fear riding shotgun.
Precisely. Action generates confidence. Inaction generates more fear. Every time you stay quiet, the fear gets a little bit stronger.
Okay, so we know the fears. We know we have to act, but just do it is. It's easier said than done. When your throat is closing up, how do you actually override that freeze response? The source gives us a framework. It's called the ICAN method.
Yes, ICAN. It's an acronym you can just run through in your head when that panic starts to hit.
All right, let's break it down. What's the I?
I is for identify. And this goes right back to emotional regulation. You have to acknowledge the feeling. You have to name the fear. Don't let it just be this vague cloud of anxiety. You say to yourself, I am feeling nervous because I think I'll make a mistake.
Why does naming it help so much? It seems like focusing on it would make it worse.
It's a weird quirk of the brain. When you label an emotion, you shift the activity from the amygdala, the fight or flight part, to your prefrontal cortex, the logical part. You're taking power away from the fear by analyzing it.
You're turning a monster into a specimen. Okay, so we've identified it. What's C?
C is for calm. And this is where it gets very physiological. The guide suggests what it calls a 10-second calm tool.
10 seconds, I can spare that. What do you do?
It's a mix of breath and a mantra. You breathe in slowly, then you breathe out slowly. That physically forces your shoulders to drop. And while you're doing that, you say a specific sentence to yourself. I can do it. I will try.
I can do it. I will try. I like that it includes I will try. It's not promising perfection.
That's absolutely crucial. It moves the goalpost. The goal isn't to deliver a perfect speech. The goal is just to make an attempt. It lowers the stakes.
Which leads us right into A.
Which is attempt.
And again, this is an attempt to give a keynote speech.
No, just attempt one small sentence. Just break the silence. That's it. Once you've broken it, momentum can start to take over.
It's like pushing a car. The first inch is the hardest. Okay, and finally, N.
Next step. Plan one tiny action for tomorrow. This stops you from spiraling if the attempt wasn't perfect. It reminds you this is a process, not a final exam.
Identify, calm, attempt, next step. ICAN. It's a loop you can run in your head in like 20 seconds.
Exactly. It's a grounding mechanism. It just stops the spiral.
So let's talk about the part. The attempt. Because the guide doesn't just say speak, it actually gives you a script, a phrase bank. And honestly, I use these all the time in English.
Oh, absolutely. Linguists call them discourse markers or fillers, but they serve this huge psychological function. They buy you time.
Okay, so the source breaks them down. First, there's self-talk for before you speak. Things like, I'm learning, it's okay, or one step at a time.
It's cognitive reframing. You're reminding yourself that you're a learner, not a performer. You're turning down the pressure before you even begin.
Then there are the phrases for during the conversation, for when you're stalling. The guide suggests things like, let me think for a second. Now let me play devil's advocate. Doesn't that make you sound I don't know, slow.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But the research actually shows the opposite, saying, let me think for a second, makes you sound more confident.
Really? How?
Because it shows you're in control. A nervous speaker rushes. They're terrified of silence, so they babble or freeze. A confident speaker claims that space by saying, I'm taking a moment. You're telling the listener, I am in charge of this silence. It signals authority.
That's a great point. Rushing is the enemy. It makes you sloppy. Taking your time makes you seem thoughtful.
Exactly. And then the third category is for after a mistake. Instead of apologizing over and over, the guide suggests, sorry, let me try again, or my favorite, I said it wrong.
It's so useful. It's like a tiny reset button.
It's a repair strategy.
Yeah.
You fix it and you move on. You don't dwell. You're treating the conversation like a collaborative effort, not a test you're failing.
Okay, so we have our internal script. Now, what about what we actually say to the other person? The source has this idea of one-sentence speaking patterns.
This goes back to lowering the bar. When you're nervous, you try to build these huge, complex sentences to prove you're smart, and your brain just overloads. The guide says, stop, aim for one sentence.
And it gives 3 templates. The first one is the feeling pattern. I'm feeling because...
Like, I'm a little nervous because I'm practicing English.
I love this because it's so honest. But is it weird to tell a stranger you're nervous?
That vulnerability, it builds rapport. Think about it. If someone came up to you and was just struggling and panicking, you might feel impatient. But if they start by saying, hey, I'm a little nervous because I'm learning, how do you feel?
I'd immediately want to help them. I'd slow down, smile. I'd be rooting for them.
Exactly. You've completely disarmed the situation. 99% of people become more patient. You turn them from a judge into a helper.
Wow. That's a powerful social hack. What's the second pattern?
The effort pattern.
Yeah.
I'm trying to speak more, or I'm trying to explain this clearly. It signals your intent.
And the third is goals. My goal is to understand movies better. And the guide says to add a little tag at the end, like, how about you?
Which is the secret weapon of all conversation.
Yeah.
You turn the spotlight back onto them, the pressure comes off you, and they feel interesting. It's a win-win.
Okay, this is where it gets really good for me. We talked about the fear of the vanishing word. You need to say stapler, and your brain is just static. The source has a solution for this called the bridge.
This is, I would argue, more important than vocabulary size. Fluency isn't about knowing every single word. It's about knowing how to navigate around the words you don't know. And the bridge is that navigation system.
So instead of freezing, you just describe it, you build a verbal bridge over the gap.
Right. If you forget the word umbrella, you don't stop, you use a bridge phrase. It's like, or it's a thing you use for. You just say, it's like a thing you use for rain.
Or if you forget salary, you say the money I get every month.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you can simplify, in other words, or you can just ask, what's the word for?
The source has this game, say it without the word. It's like playing taboo with yourself.
It's a brilliant exercise. It trains your brain to be flexible. So if you hit a roadblock, you don't crash, you just take a detour. And honestly, this is how native speakers talk all the time.
You know, the thingamajig that connects to the whatchamacallit, I say that daily.
And that's the bridge technique in action. It's just effective communication.
It's so liberating. It means you can communicate really complex ideas, even with a limited vocabulary. You just describe your way around the missing pieces. It turns a total blockade into a little speed bump.
Which reinforces the main point. Communication is about connection, not perfection. They understand you mean umbrella. You've succeeded. The vocabulary test is irrelevant.
So we have the mindset, we have the phrases, we have the bridge. But how do we make this all stick? Because motivation is great for a day, but habits are what change things. The source has a system for this called 3-1-1.
And this is all about preventing burnout. You see, learners try to study for 2 hours a day, they last for 3 days, get exhausted, feel guilty, and then quit for a month.
The boom and bust cycle, like a gym membership in January.
Totally. The 3-1-1 system is about micro habits. The bar is so low, you literally can't fail.
Okay, break it down. 3-1-1.
3 minutes of listening to English. That's it. 1 minute of repeating out loud. You have to actually move your mouth. And 1 sentence used in real life today.
That's it. 5 minutes total.
5 minutes. But it's 5 minutes every single day.
I have to push back a bit here. Can you really learn a language in 5 minutes a day? It just seems insufficient.
Well, you're not learning the whole language in 5 minutes. You are keeping the neural pathways open. More importantly, you're building the identity of someone who speaks English. Consistency beats intensity every single time.
It's about not breaking the chain.
Exactly. The source tells this story, the tale of two learners. Learner A is the all-or-nothing type. Studies for a whole weekend, crams vocab, then stops for 2 weeks.
And feels a lot of guilt during those 2 weeks. Feels like they're failing.
Huge guilt, which makes them avoid the subject even more. Then you have learner B, the 311 type. They just do their 5 minutes. No stress, just maintenance.
And spoiler alert, learner B wins.
Learner B wins because practice builds confidence. Every day they do their tiny task. They prove to themselves, I can do this. It's a daily vote for their new identity. Learner A just reinforces the idea that English is a burden.
That guilt is such a killer. The 311 method basically removes the guilt because the bar is so low you can always step over it.
Exactly. You can't fail at 3 minutes.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've covered a lot. The fears, mistakes, judgment, forgetting, the ICAN method, the phrase bank, the bridge for missing words, and the 311 system to keep going.
It's a whole toolkit for psychological safety. It's about making it safe enough for you to speak.
What's the one thing that stands out most to you? If there's one aha moment in all of this.
For me, it goes back to that first idea. English is courage. We think of language as an intellectual thing, like math. You learn the facts, you know it. But it's not. It's a performance art. It's closer to improv.
That's a great way to put it. It's improv. You're stepping on stage without a full script.
And the tools we talked about, the bridges, the fillers, they're just the safety nets that give you the courage to take that leap and to realize the audience wants you to succeed. They want to connect.
I think my favorite takeaway is that I can do it isn't some magical feeling you wait for. It's a decision. It's not I can do it perfectly. It's just I can do it imperfectly, and that's enough.
I can attempt. That's the real victory.
So for you listening, whether it's English or Spanish or Python or just speaking up in meetings, these rules apply. The fear is the same, and the solution is the same. Identify, calm, attempt, next step.
And don't forget the bridge. If you don't know the word, just describe the thing.
Exactly, the thing used for rain.
It works. Gets the job done.
The source leaves us with this final thought, and it's a powerful one. Your English doesn't need to be perfect. Your English needs to be used. That really sums it all up.
It does. A broken hammer that actually hits the nail is better than a golden hammer that just stays in the toolbox.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to be thinking about that one. It's about utility. Language is just a tool. Use it.
Use it, break it, fix it, and use it again. That's how we learn.
So here's our challenge to you. Not a big one. A 311 kind of challenge. Find one moment today where you feel that I can't resistance and just flip it. Use one phrase. Let me think for a second, see what happens.
You might be surprised how much space opens up when you stop trying to be perfect.
And with that, we're signing off. Go be brave with your words today. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.